Hello and welcome to Update Novi, your favorite show in Novi. I was going to say podcast, but we're not on a podcast. It's their favorite show with the mayor in Novi.
Perfect.
Maybe because it's the only show with the mayor in Novi?
Probably.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. Hey, this is only number 2. There's the opportunity to grow and expand.
I agree.
Yeah?
I agree.
Thanks for joining me.
Good to be here again.
You know, we said on our last episode that we were going to have a great guest.
Yes. I was thinking, I was thinking a superstar. I was thinking a rock star. And I show up this morning, and we have one. It's our city manager, Victor Cardenas.
Wow.
How lucky are we? On a Friday
lucky.
morning in the summer, there's nowhere I would rather be than with you two. I hope you know that.
You know, you can't kick off a new fiscal year without the city manager.
Okay. I'll buy into that narrative.
I think this is early July when we're taping this, but I think July 1 may be like one of your favorite days of the year, right, Victor? Like, close those books, get more money, get a new budget, and get rolling again, right?
That's correct, because it finalizes the projects from the previous year and then kicks off on all the projects for the next year. So,
in theory.
Actually, in reality too.
In theory, in reality.
Do you just view it as a whole new bucket of money that's, you don't have to worry about all the issues from last year?
I think my department directors do, yes.
Okay. And I'm still disappointed because I texted you last night, Sheryl. You said this was the topic. I thought we were going to have the hats, the party favors, the big happy fiscal new year party. But
I know. I wore the celebratory color. I wore the fiesta, the party color, and they're...
I think
apparently we got the Novi gear attire.
You got the Novi gear. I don't have a Novi polo. How does that?
You have an oak. You have.
I do not have a Novi polo.
Not a polo, but all the other variations.
Okay, that's fair.
Yep.
But let's talk about the budget, right? Like Victor and I have shared on the podcast how you make the soup, if you would, right? Like what goes into the planning. But what really happens on July 1? So Victor's already said, like, you close the chapter, all the projects and from the previous fiscal year are closed out. What happens on July 1? Do we roll up our sleeves, really get going? Are the projects in process? Is there this new bucket of money? Because I wish that's how it worked in the Malloy household, that you just got this new bucket of money. What happens on July 1?
Yeah, so we have a budget that is approved in May, and then all those new tax revenues and everything become realized in July 1 for whatever is in the council's most important document, which is the annual budget. That's their policy document, and all of the new dollars that are recognized from our tax revenue starts on July 1. So we have to close all the books from the previous year. We have to, any invoices that are from prior to that have to be kind of realized, and we automatically start, we start the budget process pretty much in August. And so, and then the audit also gets ramped up as well. So everything is brand new in this document, all the new projects, any kind of construction stuff gets going on July 1. Actually, some of the construction projects that we have planned really has to wait until July 1. So that bucket of money can start being utilized and can start getting invoiced in that new fiscal year.
When we talk about the document itself and it being a policy document from council, Mayor, maybe you can speak to this. When it's presented to you in April, you guys all deliberate in April, May. What are you all looking for in that document, other than obviously it being a balanced document? What makes a great budget from a council perspective?
A couple different things. Yeah, I think in the time frame you're talking about, that April, May deliberation time frame, what makes a great budget to us? Obviously, you mentioned balanced, right? And then we start to look at where are we spending some of the larger chunks of money? What are the bigger projects that we want to tackle over the next year? And do those align with the goals that council has set? So that's kind of how I approach the budget in that time frame during those deliberations. The other piece to us is making sure that we're sustainable from a financial perspective. And that's why we have, 10 years ago, Mayor Gatt introduced and encouraged us to do a 3-year rolling budget. So we're able to see, all right, we're fine next year, but what does year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 bring for us? So that's kind of my process of how I deliberate through the budget in April, May discussions.
And I think that's a great point. And Victor, the city can project out, right? What taxes, our revenue is going to look like. You can at least project to a pretty fair degree as to what that's going to look like and start projecting what we need. The CIP is in the budget, so the big items you budget out for. Similarly, you've said, if your house needs a new roof and in 5 years, you could start budgeting for it. Similar process for the city, correct?
Yeah. Now, obviously, we're in a weird time now, post-COVID, in terms of cost increases, material increases, labor increases. But for the most part, yes, we can project out in terms of how much we're going to anticipate for tax revenue, how much labor costs are going to be, how much in terms of material costs. So yes. Now, those can obviously vary once we get to that budget time and we have a better estimate of those costs. But for the baseline, we kind of project up, 3% every year for this and 2% for that. So that's how we present it for the city council for those 3 years. And then we even go past that for, like you said, the CIP and other items.
I think you make a good point. I mean, the cost side is really the one that's harder to project, right? And that's the inflation and COVID types of things. But thankfully, we have such a great diverse tax base here in Novi. So when you talk about the revenue side of the budget, that's a little easier to project because, property values are going up. They're capped at a certain amount because of, Proposal A and all those things. So that side is a little more comforting from council's perspective that we're comfortable with those projections and estimations.
How, and this is a question that we get asked from the community relations side, or we've seen on social media. How does the city get its money? Everybody pays taxes, they know that. How does the city, is that the only way the city gets money is tax revenue? How does the city get its money to operate?
So the majority of the revenue we receive is from tax dollars, and those are based on property tax. Then we get some component from the state in terms of constitutional revenue sharing. There's a little bit of statutory revenue sharing, and then we have some grants and some other dollars that come in as well. But if you look at the pie chart, the majority of it is going to be coming from property taxes. We don't get any kind of taxes from any kind of sales tax, nothing from income tax. Everything comes from the values of our properties, from residential and commercial.
So to the people that would say, and they say it on social, why are my taxes so high? Our response has always been, and ever since I've been here, is we actually have one of the lowest taxes in Oakland County. We operate on one of the lowest, as far as cities go, tax rates in Oakland County. But when we collect their taxes, we're collecting taxes for all the other entities that you pay taxes to.
That's why another thing you talk about, what makes the budget so great is the transparency that we have in it. And it's actually page 184 in the budget.
Look at you, know that.
That shows exactly how the tax dollars are broken down, right, Sheryl?
It's almost like you knew I was going to ask that question.
We are the fiduciary right here at the city to collect for all the different entities.
Okay.
And about 30 cents of every dollar that we collect goes to operate the city of Novi. The other 70 is dispersed to other places like Oakland County, the state education tax, the community school districts, et cetera. So we all got our tax bill recently, right? Mm-hmm. And right on there, it breaks down where all the different pieces go. So I think it's a very good point to bring up, right? That we collect a lot of taxes here in the Novi, but we're pretty efficient in our operations, and we only keep a certain portion.
So simple math, right? Mm-hmm. Someone pays, let's just say $10,000 in property tax annually. Only $3,000 comes back to the city.
Correct. To what? Run our library, our police, our fire, fix the majority of our roads, other than some state dollars we get, parks, all the operations here in the city building. Absolutely.
So pretty good value for your money, I would say, right?
I think so.
We would agree.
Are the proper, so 30%, $3,000 in a hypothetical world. What about the people that say, well, is that being managed correctly? Like, are my property dollars being managed correctly? Well, you know, how does the city do, and what I guess I would look to our bond ratings, you know, for the last decade are the highest AAA bond rating. But what would you say to that? How would you answer someone that might ask that? But so that's great.
Yep.
We pay some of the lowest. I pay the schools, but is my money being spent correctly, fiscally responsibly, et cetera?
Yep. Again, I think that goes to, you know, the budget document being one item that is very transparent in what we're spending the money on. The website has a lot of information on very detailed itemized actuals when they're spent, right? So people can dig through that set of data. Every year around November, December, we have our auditors come into council and present the findings of our audit to make sure that our balance sheet, our income statement, and all the different funds that, you know, our city staff manage all day and all year long, that's being appropriated correctly and following the procedures that we have in place. And that's the other thing, you know, Sheryl, too, like, we as a council set the high level budget, but you, Victor, all the other department heads, you're running the budgets on a day-to-day basis, but you have your own internal controls as far as purchasing requirements, things that a director or the city manager may have to approve, or some things that have to come all the way to the council level. So all of that coming together makes, you know, gives me the comfort that we're spending the money appropriate. There are those checks and balances.
Along with that, does the city have any debt?
$6 million worth of debt.
That's it. So when you think about the size, Victor, what is our budget? What's the bottom line of our budget?
So, I mean, bottom line is it's around $80 million all in, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, you can go, it depends on all the different funds and everything. Our general fund is over 30, so almost 40 million. So it's all in. It's about 80, 90.
So less than 10%
Correct.
of debt, and that debt is for
The library.
That's what I thought. The
So
library.
we've got, I think,
We're still
three
paying off the
payments,
debt from the
three
library.
payments left on the library, and two
Okay.
payments left on our senior center. So
Okay.
2025 and 2026 will be the last payments for those two entities.
And we just paid off the ice arena, so it's just those are the two ones the only ones we have left.
Is that uncommon? It's very uncommon, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
There's another page in the audit that talks about in terms of what we are liable for in terms of, because we as a municipal entity are still kind of on the hook for the school's debt in the area, any other government entity that we're on the hook for per se. Like it's a very like 100 miles down the road we are on the hook for that. But I did an analysis of all the other communities around the state of Michigan, and like, we are one of the lowest in terms of what we have going on for debt in the city.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's amazing. So anyone that questions our fiscal responsibility, that too is a testament, right?
And you alluded to it earlier too, right? There's a reason why S&P has us at the very top rating, Moody's has us at the second top rating, right? You don't get to those. You know, I think it's top 4% in the country have the S&P, the AAA bond rating for S&P. I think it's 4%, but you don't get to that high level without those management practices and the low debt loads.
You know, going back to operating a home or a small business, just to put it in perspective for people, how do we raise our revenue? So the majority of our revenue comes from property tax revenue, and we can't just go out and say, oh, your house is worth $400,000 today. Next year it's worth $500,000. So your taxes go up incrementally. How do we, cost of goods and services, Victor alluded to, coming out of COVID, prices have increased. A large component, I would say the largest component of the budget is probably salaries. Those costs are rising. How do we raise revenue? How does the city increase the revenue it brings in?
What's your plan for that, Victor?
So year to year, like you said, in terms of values go up in terms of, and the mayor alluded to property proposal A. We cannot just say, you know what, our millage rate is 10.5, and then some other numbers in there, 7.61 or 9.1. So we just can't say, okay, next year it's going to be 12. We have to go to the voters for that increase. That is how, in our state, the only way we can increase our tax rate is because the voter approved. So in terms of how naturally, organically, the property taxes increases because of new development that comes in, either commercial or residential, that is the way organically for it to happen, in accordance to our zoning and master plan and just how that gets developed. So, but bottom line is we cannot increase your taxes by saying, you know what, 2 more mills on the tax bill that the mayor has, that we can just increase it. That has to go to the voters for any kind of approval of that increase.
So it's development, redevelopment.
Absolutely.
Redevelopment would also
absolutely
occur that.
And that's why, the budget and the finances are just so much more than just the finance department. It has to do with community development and everything else, right? We need to make sure that we have ordinances in place, that we're changing ordinances. We're getting to a point where there's a lot of commercial properties that we may want to see some redevelopment in, and we need to be a city that's going to encourage that, cut the red tape, make sure that people can redevelop those businesses. And then also encourage other areas of residential development in a responsible fashion. I think council has been doing a good job of that. But to raise revenue without kind of going to the voters or getting more from the state, it really has to do with development and keeping our city relevant.
One other topic of interest that came up during the budget discussion, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off, is rainy day funds. Why the importance? I've just heard Victor say we have virtually, $6 million is a lot, but virtually no debt for a city our size with the revenue stream that we do. Why the need for rainy day funds? What city's operating, we're not missing a beat. Why do we need those rainy day funds?
From my perspective, two things. Well, just from an operational perspective, the money doesn't all come in on day one, right? The money comes in throughout the year, et cetera, et cetera. So just from the treasurer's perspective, they have cash flow needs throughout the year. So you're gonna have to have some sort of cushion, just like you do in maybe your checking account at home. As far as how much we keep, I equate it back to a household as well, right? You hear financial experts say, hey, you should have 3 to 6 months savings in case you get laid off, in case something happens. And so that's what we really push for from a council policy perspective, is to have 25-ish% of a rainy day fund in our general fund. Because if we have another COVID, if we have another financial meltdown, if our revenue dries up because of that, we need to make sure that we're still able to provide the police, the fire, the parks, all the things that we do from this building, right? And if we don't have the money set aside in those catastrophic instances, then we're gonna have to look to, first and foremost, cutting probably people, et cetera, because like you said, that a biggest portion of our budget is people, cut road projects, cut all the things that people really expect. So it's really about financial responsibility. Another reason why we have those high ratings is because those financial policies on the rainy day fund as well.
And the mayor alluded to there's the general fund, but there's also other rainy day funds that we have to plan for, because there might be, as he says, catastrophic events. It wasn't too long ago, there was a huge sinkhole that opened up in Macomb County that took care of sewer lines, roadways, and everything. And that just doesn't get, there's an insurance claim out there that goes out there and adjuster kind of cuts you a check for that. We're on the hook for a lot of that. So that's why there's different funds, not just the general fund, there's road funds, there's a water and sewer fund, that we have to plan for those kind of catastrophic events that we are deliberate about being able to, plan for, and hopefully never happens, but fix it when it does happen.
We had that a couple of years ago, if I recall. The Meadowbrook Bridge, don't you recall? There was an issue with the Meadowbrook Bridge, and they ended up being able to use rainy day funds to go ahead and fix that. And
it was something that wasn't budgeted, and it was on our road.
Yep.
Yeah, it was deemed unsafe, or they couldn't carry the load or something of that.
And we want to always be able to step in those instances and make sure we're fixing the issue. We're not trying to find the cash in the emergency.
Would you, and I don't expect you to know the answer, but would you hazard a guess I'm thinking Meadowbrook Bridge just brought up, and I know it's a sore subject, the bridge on 8 Mile. Yep. Which has been down to 1 lane for several years now. It's not ours, it's Wayne County's, right? But had something like this it wasn't planned for, been able to have been taken care of, or is that part of fiscal responsibility? And I mean, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but thoughts?
I think, again, our goal here in the city of Novi is to make sure we have adequate funds to address the needs that we have. And we do our planning in the three-year way, and we have the rainy day funds so we can address those issues. We don't want to have a situation where we have a bridge down for a couple of years. Right. And I think that the financial policies that, city manager and city managers prior, myself and my colleagues on council and prior councils have driven to the point where we're in a comfortable position that we could address that here in the city of Novi, anything that's our responsibility.
And to that example is that we would not let any part of our infrastructure get to that obsolescence phase. We would plan accordingly and make sure that that is replaced before this catastrophic event happens, that we have to mitigate it for so many years until we have the resources to finally fix it.
What about, so these are, infrastructure incidents we were just talking about. What about, I don't want to say the fun stuff, but somebody gets a great idea that we see in another community, we want to make that happen too. Are those rainy day funds for that? Like my rainy day funds in my home budget could be like, do I want to dip into that to go on vacation and then resupply?
Absolutely.
So is this a genuine question, or are you just really asking for your own?
I don't know. I'm just wondering, what if something came up?
I'm getting the impression you're about to ask your husband for something, and you want to use us as props in this debate.
No, I just wonder,
Yes.
Because there are sometimes when you all sit at goal setting, mm-hmm. and we just talked about it being a 3-year budget, but something comes up mm-hmm. that, be it, I don't know, an art in the park or something new, right? That we're like, hey, we need to implement this. And it could be something related to COVID, right? Coming out of COVID, had there been something, it allows us to pivot and shift and have that capacity and not
Absolutely.
Look to eliminate something else, right? And then just have a plan, like your home budget, to replenish those funds. Yep. That's where I'm going.
That's exactly the way to think through it. And that's why we really think of the fund balance as a range, right? When we're on the lower end of the range, then we're less comfortable saying, yes, maybe we should add some new pickleball courts using fund balance. Oh, okay. Gee, we're at the higher end of the range.
Gotcha.
We feel a little more cushion. We can go ahead and spend that. Another good example is the city staff is always looking for economies of scale and things to pull things ahead. All right, well, we want to pull it ahead this year, right? We can use the rainy day funds with the plan to go ahead and replenish it in future years because maybe we're afraid the cost is going to go up, or we can partner with another community and do a larger bid so our pricing's better. That's a great way to use the rainy day funds as long as we're within that range.
Or as your first question alluded to, we could actually straddle the 2 fiscal years. We can start the project in the end of the 1 fiscal year. It's in the same construction season, and then finish it in the next fiscal year, just to make sure that we have the capacity and we have the good unit prices from the contractor to make something happen.
Good deal. Anything you want to wrap up on the budget? It's available on the website in its entirety.
Final form.
Final
there you
form.
Go.
Love the building community together, but it is available in its entirety on cityofnovi.org for anyone that is so inclined and interested. Victor, final thoughts?
I was really hoping to have a budget video where I play with Legos and we're building a city and stuff, but unfortunately, this is it right here. So thank God.
That would have been great.
Yeah, no, I mean, the mayor alluded to it early. We have a very comprehensive website that has all of this information in terms of where our money's going. The CIP website is very just intuitive, shows you where things are happening on a map, shows you by year, by fund. So if you're looking for any kind of information on where money's going, it's all out there.
That reminds me too. I think the CIP document and the website pages are something that we can't do enough to communicate and share that story, because so many times you all have planned for something 3, 4, 5, 6 years out, and it's been in that CIP.
Yep.
And we get to the project and people go, I never knew this was happening. Like, and we've been planning it for sometimes 5 years, right? We've known it's coming.
Yep.
But we can't drive people to that enough to know to look at road improvements, big projects.
We had that example the other night at council. A gentleman came, was inquiring about potentially 12 mile and where that is, and that's a project that we have right on the CIP that we're working with Oakland County right now on. So, absolutely a great resource to find out about those projects.
Well, thank you both for the great discussion about the budget. I think it's super informative. We keep getting tons of compliments. You heard it yesterday about the format from the state of the city. Everywhere we go, people are like, that was great. So just having these discussions in a very candid, casual manner, I just think helps people maybe gain a better understanding of city operations. So thank you both. We're going to end, we promised to end on hot topics.
Yes, what's going on in the city?
The hot
What are we
topic.
hearing, Sheryl?
What are we hearing? Let's talk about the transition from GFL to priority waste, because it's on local news.
Yep.
It has impacted not just Novi, but Metro Detroit area as a whole. And if people are watching, they're seeing maybe some negativity. On social, it's been great. The first week there was some bumps. It was a holiday week. I think we've shared, like, it's a holiday week. People are on vacation. I'm not talking just residents. I'm talking staff take vacations traditionally around that time of year. And maybe it wasn't the greatest time to start on a July 1, but so there were some bumps. But
let's step back a step there, right? None of that was under our control, right?
No.
The transition was because Priority had taken over and bought GFL and assumed all their contracts, right?
I think like 70, like
Right.
I want to say they were operating maybe 40 communities, and then they took on another 70, 75. I don't have the exact number. But to your point, this isn't any different than the bumps we saw when we went from multiple hauler to single with waste management, and then waste management to GFL.
When many residents had Hornback for so many years, and then Hornback sold off, and then that created a change. And again, that was not under the purview of the city. So
So there were bumps, there were kinks that worked themselves out. So I saw in the packet, and I was pleasantly pleased to see in the packet all missed pickups. We're talking recycling, trash collection, and yard waste, 37 for the entire city. How many contracts how many pickups do we do, Victor? 20-some thousand?
Households that we...
Yeah, and that's 20,000. That's usually there's 3 different pickups on depending on if they have their recycling, their trash, and their yard waste.
So, and those that are reported to us, obviously.
Correct,
But
yes.
Victor, how many? And I'm gonna put you on the spot. In an average week, I mean, it's not uncommon that GFL or Waste Management prior there would be missed pickups too. Driver changes.
Exactly. Someone calls off sick. There's someone going there,
sick.
just like your mail might get changed up when there's a different mail person there. Or if your kid has rides a school bus, it might be a different bus driver. It might be a little bit late. So there's all those kind of variables that come into play. So
I think from Novi's standpoint, I know other communities. I don't want to jinx it, but I think it's going pretty well.
Yes, I think it has. I've seen some of the stuff on social. I dive into it, and it tends to be some of the other cities. Thankfully, people who have reached out to me, I've only actually gotten compliments that it seems to be going smoothly. So again, kudos to the staff for the support that they give and what Priority is doing at this point. I think some of the key things,
if we could, just as a reminder while we're on this topic, is your trash, your recycling, your yard waste has to be out by 7 a.m., right, Victor? We're hearing that they are going to be, I don't want to say it's AVL because it's not what it is, but they are going to be using some technology that they will be able to see we will be able to see in real time when they're in our neighborhoods. So if you have a missed pickup and we show they were in or on your street, your trash better have been out by 7, right? Like we can't stress that enough.
It's similar to our public safety in terms of cameras in the vehicles and whatnot, in terms of recording different interactions. So they're actually going to record when they're way past a house and they pick up that trash can, and they're going to see if trash cans are there or not there. So that's when they're going to timestamp it and date stamp it and everything. So
it's pretty cool technology, right? And it's like you don't want to call anybody out, but we just want everybody to follow the procedures and be, just recognize, have that out, be thoughtful and understanding, and grant them some grace too. Like just grant them some grace. These drivers aren't the drivers that necessarily we had working our routes under GF Bell. They're new, they're learning Novi, and then, as we said before, road construction. Right. When that waste hauler is full, it's got to leave Novi and go dump it and come back. We all know road construction is a challenge, so just grant them some grace.
And issues do happen, and there are ways to remedy that. And obviously, there's the direct line to priority, but people can also submit the ticket through the City of Novi's website, and that'll get forwarded over to priority. So there's a couple different ways when those mistakes do happen that the city is ready to step in and be the conduit and make sure that the pickup happens.
100%. Don't hesitate to give us a call or a text, 248-278-7611. And
your personal phone number?
Exactly, yes. Right. I'm always monitoring them.
Say that one more time for people, please.
248-278-7611 is our text that you can just go ahead and submit a text to us, and we will then respond accordingly and get that to whatever that might be. It might be for trash or anything else. It kind of is our input for any kind of intake for any kind of issue that is going on in the city that will get it solved.
So either text that number or from your phone, request assistance goes right into our QSend system, which is our help line, and we'll filter those out. Just grant them some grace. I think it's going to go fine. I have no doubts that
this is our third transition, so we're kind of old pros at this.
Right.
So yes, the first week or two is a little bit rough, but then it smooths out after that. And again, as the mayor said, we can't really speak to what's happening in other communities, but I believe Priority did a good job in securing and maintaining the staff that was from GFL in our community. I think that's why it's been so problem-free thus far. But again, there are always usually some kind of a missed pickup here and there on a weekly basis. So I think that 36 is closer to the real number. So hopefully that will only get smaller as the weeks go on.
So good stuff. That's the hot topic.
Perfect.
You know what? I don't want to say it's been quiet, but things have been great.
It should be summer. People should be out enjoying, out at the parks.
And summer's half over already.
Oh.
Victor, how is the splash pad going? I haven't heard. Have you heard everything good? I don't drive that way. You guys drive that way more. Do you see that it's being used?
I see it being used. I see the parking lot very full. So I think a lot of people are using it.
Yep.
That's great.
That's another thing I've been getting texts about is how great the splash pad is. And whether driving by, running by, it seems to be fully packed.
So neither of you have had the children up there?
My kids have gone with neighbors and whatnot. I have not had the pleasure of attending.
Okay.
I'm still drying out from the opening when I got soaking wet. So, but no, we'll be up there soon.
There's plenty of summer left.
Exactly.
There's plenty of summer left. Thank you both again for joining me and us here on Update Novi. We already know who our next guest is going to be. I just got to get it on the calendar. I think we're going to talk State Fair.
Oh.
It's as summer winds down in Novi. Our plan is to hear all the great things that are going on at the State Fair.
Yep.
I want to see a tasting thing. I want elephant ears. I want cotton candy here. I want to see all that.
That would be great.
Sheryl didn't deliver on the party hats and party fever. I will take that on personally to make sure I get
I will deliver that. That
corn
would be fun. I
dogs
thought you were.
and
I thought you were going to
Oreos.
say. I thought you were going to say contest. You want to see us in one of the contests, like the eating contest. I'm like,
I
am out.
We could do that too.
I want to see fair flair.
I'm out.
All right. We'll have to record in the afternoon next time.
Okay.
Then.
Good. That's good stuff. Thank you for joining us again. And until next time, stay safe, Novi.